So thank you for joining me today. I attended your supper club last week and was so blown over by the quality of the experience. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. That means so much to me.
Excellent. Before we begin, I just want to say it warms my heart to find a kindred spirit who enjoys building community over home-cooked meals. But you've gone a step further and you're willing to invite strangers into your home to share a meal together.
That's great.
Over your incredible cuisine. So thank you on behalf of your current diners as well as all your past and future diners. But to kick it off, I'm wondering if you could explain in your own words what you mean by a supper club and what inspired your vision to start such an enterprise.
Absolutely. Well, a supper club is not a new concept. It's actually a very old concept. Kind of arose around Prohibition times. It started in the UK. Chefs just wanted a way to express themselves without the structures and the confines of their restaurants, without the confines of their menus. So they were able to express their creativity fully. And they started hosting these dinners in their homes. And it was kind of like a secret underground thing. In relation to the supper club, for me, it's been a whole journey. I wanted to originally open up a tiny little restaurant, and I wanted it to be called Home, which is now my company name, Home by Elva. And I'll tell you a little bit about the vision and how it translates here. So Home was supposed to be small enough where I could cook and serve everything myself. I would have no menus, where I could express myself without structure, like I was saying. I would be inspired by the seasonality and local produce, and I would create a daily menu, and people would come and it would feel like a very cozy home experience. I wanted to have books on the walls where people could take and leave, so it was an ever-evolving organism. I wanted to have art showcased by local Toronto artists as well that people could buy off, and so it was a very organic, there was an organic element to it. And when I started to think about how I could implement it, I thought about my own home, and I thought, why not make this in my literal home?
And there you have Home by Elva. That's
and there
fantastic.
I have Home by Elva.
Well,
Yeah.
It's a fantastic enterprise. So what inspired you to invite strangers into your own home for these dining experiences as opposed to just keeping it to your close family and friends?
Well, originally, when I first started to do this, I was advertising it to people that I mostly knew. I started out on social media, just on Instagram and Facebook, and I sort of announced one day, like, hey, I decided to start a supper club. Whoever wants to come, the invite is open to everybody. Here's the menu, here are the prices, and it kind of just blew up very quickly.
So how do you curate the menu for each supper club event that you host? Is it related to the season? Is it related to the event, the cultural expression of the food that you want to express with your friends and your guests? So what inspires the menus?
This is a broad answer because every menu is completely different, every event is completely different, and I really wanted to drive that point home, actually, that each and every single night will be completely unique and it will never come around again. So in regards to menu development, I do have a certain process which all comes after initial inspiration. And insofar as the initial inspiration, that is very hard to describe because it could come up with anything. For example, the first one I wanted to do was Albanian cuisine because I'm Albanian and there are no Albanian restaurants in Toronto, so I really wanted to showcase that. Another example is my February event. I decided to do a singles mingles event to kind of honor Valentine's Day and give an opportunity for single people to meet each other more organically. So that menu was inspired by that element, and I created an aphrodisiac menu. Last month, or actually let's talk about spring, for example. When it was the spring equinox on March 21st, I decided to do a very spring-inspired menu, all very fresh, green, spring elements. So then once I have that, I go to all my cookbooks that you'll see here, and I like to go to the index where I can look at each individual ingredient. So then eggplants, for example, and I'll go to all the chapters that have eggplant in them, and I'll kind of have an index in my mind of what I can do with a certain ingredient. I actually don't use recipes ever.
Okay, excellent.
This is another reason why I don't bake. It's because you need a recipe for baking.
Okay.
But when it comes to cooking, I use inspirations. So when I look at a recipe, I look at it like a story or a journey. And I'll think about how each ingredient would like to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
And then in regards to the menu, I kind of start from the top and then the bottom, and then work my way to the middle, if that makes sense. And I make the whole thing kind of tell a story.
So one of the things I noticed last week is you curated the music, you curated the drink with your lilac liquid simple syrup,
Exactly.
but there's also an accent in your dessert.
That's right. So it all ties in together. So the start and the end was the same.
Yeah.
And then everything in between kind of works to the middle.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Excellent. Attended last week, I noticed that you were in the kitchen the whole dinner, preparing the meal and coming out with each course with a fantastic story of the seasonality of the dishes that you crafted. But does it ever kind of intrigue you to want to be a part of the dinner, or what is your role in terms of being in the kitchen versus joining us at the table?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Great question. I do pick up certain points of conversation sometimes where I feel like I want to participate and add in something. And it depends on how well I know the whole group. I think now after the Toronto Star article, I've had a lot more strangers come through, such as yourself. This was their first time meeting, last time you were here. So I kind of have to refrain myself sometimes, but there have been moments where I'll pop my head in and interject something to the conversation that I felt like I needed to add in. But mostly I kind of have little moments where I kind of just like sneak my head in and I can hear the room just bustling and so vibrant and so loud and everybody's connecting so well. I mean, even when I do come to the table to drop off dishes, you may have noticed, I have to yell over everybody because everybody's so busy talking I can barely get a word in.
So looking ahead, what do you have in mind to either expand or enhance the experience of Home by Elva? What are some of the things you want to work on over the next few months or a year or so?
Oh my goodness, I am currently bursting with ideas. I can barely keep up with myself.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that I do is I host private events.
Mm-hmm.
So that could mean that people could hire me out for the entire night and they could use my space here for the private event.
Mm-hmm.
I've done birthdays so far. And now that is also expanding to doing private events outside of this home as well, which is really lovely. I have a women's wellness retreat coming up. I've had a beach retreat in PEC also reach out to me to come and host events there as a supper club there. They've offered for me to host my supper club, my existing supper club guests in their location, which is also really wonderful. Mm-hmm. So there's opportunities arising in so many different avenues for different collaborations and connections. Another really fun element that kind of arose from a fun little story from a supper club, actually. So on my December event, I had a whole seafood menu. And I went to Anchor on Roncy to pick up all of the seafood, and I didn't realize how heavy everything would be, and it was raining that day. So I had this big box of oysters, I had clams, I had mussels, I had scallops, and I met this lovely girl at the counter there who was selling me all the oysters, and she saw me trying to carry everything, and she was just like, let me help you. You know what, I'm just gonna lock up the store and I'll come walk it over to your house. So I was like, wow, this is so amazing. We had this really amazing conversation on the 5-minute walk over to my house, and she revealed that she's a singer and she does private events with her singing as well. So in that moment I started thinking, wow, wouldn't it be cool if I hosted singers or performers in the supper clubs as well, so that it could be like a performance and a dinner element to it as well. regards to doing their own supper clubs, I would say good luck. It's apparently quite the adventure, which I had no idea about when I first started. It's growing rapidly, and I'm trying to hold it all together as it's growing. In regards to people coming, that is actually the point that I really wanted to drive home, is that I want this to be open to absolutely everybody. That's one point that I thought about when the Toronto Star article came out. There was a lot of tension placed on my current guest list, which happened to be, at the time, millennials in their 30s to 40s to 50s, whatever it may be. But it's so important to me for everybody to know that this is an experience that I want for absolutely everybody. And I've had seniors reach out to me like, oh, it's my 50th wedding anniversary coming up. I'd love to come celebrate, but am I allowed in your space? Of course you are. Absolutely everybody. I want this to expand and go super far. Even if I'm no longer involved in it, if I hire staff and get this to evolve into something else, it's just super important for me that I'm making connections. I'm helping people make connections, because I think we're so badly deprived of that, especially after the last few years we just had. It's so important for people to be able to feel like they can have a conversation again.
And one of the driving forces or driving pillars of Dany chez Joubert is using food as an organizing activity to bring people together. And bringing people together from diverse audiences, food is such a low barrier to find common ground.
That's
and
right.
Build community and repair the divided world that we have.
It's the most ancient type of gathering. We have gathered around food for as long as humans have existed.
Yeah.
Really. That's the most primal thing that we can do, is to gather around cooking and eating.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, and there's something I think about being in somebody's home, in a communal dining table, that really just removes any barriers.